RWBY has made it to 7 years of the show running. Throughout that long time, it's had some ups and downs, so with its 7th volume, a lot of people wondered if it was going to improve its mistakes from before, or repeat them. And looking at the fanbase, they've been pretty divided about this volume. And if you're wondering about my verdict, the simple answer is, it was really good. So, if that's what you wanted, then I guess that's it then. This is how I rank volumes 1 through 6, and throughout volume 7, my opinion on where it would land changed around a lot. However, now that it's over, I can confidently say that it has replaced volume 6 as my second favorite volume. Pretty high praise, but it's not without its faults. So let's take a closer look to see what volume 7 does right, and where can it improve. Now, before we dive into the volume itself, I think it's important to take a look at its production, because a lot changed for RWBY behind the scenes this time around. I won't get into the mess that was what Gray Haddock ended up doing with the company. There's plenty of videos about that already. I will say, I think his leaving was probably a positive direction for the CRWBY. The budget problems from prior volumes seem to have gotten better, and I can only assume it was thanks to him being gone. More importantly, however, the team have added 2 new writers to their crew, Eddie and Kiersey. Miles and Carrie have been writers for the show since the very beginning, and a lot of people love to shit on them and pin all of RWBY's problems onto them specifically. The amount of times I see the excuse of bad writing thrown around is stupid, because Miles and Carrie are good writers. They just have their strengths and weaknesses. Remember, these 2 are the ones that wrote the Apathy episode. They clearly have talent and have improved a lot over the last couple of years. However, their faults in their writing tend to lead to boring character dialogue. Miles and Carrie seem to really excel at world building and creating lore and backstories. They're also really good at writing the beginning of a story and the end. Their inciting incidents and their finales are usually very exciting. Likewise, they've recently shown they can also do really great with their action-heavy episodes. Volume 7, Episodes 3 is a testament to that. However, the 2 seem to struggle with all the stuff in between, most notably character interactions. A lot of complaints from prior volumes is that the character dialogue is devoid of actual character. Usually when we have a talking head scene, the characters just regurgitate exposition, or go over something that we've already seen. This is where Eddie and Kiersey seem to really elevate the writing team. I've been saying RWBY needed to add another writer to their team as far back as Volume 2. A different perspective from what Miles and Carrie usually think. Miles and Carrie do a lot for Roosterteeth. Directing, writing, voice acting, they got a lot on their plates, and so having 2 more hands to help carry the weight is definitely a good thing. Fortunately, they seem to really gel with Miles and Carrie, and the volume's writing has never been better. Eddie and Kiersey have given dialogue-heavy scenes a much-needed facelift, and I've never been so invested in conversations. Now, I haven't spent nearly enough time with the 2 to have a better understanding of their strengths and weaknesses, like with Miles and Carrie. However, their additions seem to have been a positive for the show. Miles and Carrie can write a great skeleton for the show, and Eddie and Kiersey are great at adding the meat to this oddly gruesome metaphor I've come up with. Now, their additions have been for the better when it comes to the characters, however, there's some problems with the plot, and more importantly, the pacing. Volume 7 is both bafflingly slow, and yet simultaneously totally rushed. The pace of the show is entirely out of whack, and it's kind of hard to explain. The pace crawls forward for the first 5 episodes, and episode 6 hits, and things finally starts getting moving, but then the show goes back to crawling until the finale, when suddenly it kicks into overdrive and blasts past a bunch of stuff, foregoing any sort of setup to get to the finale instead. And yet, despite the slow pace for the show, they still blast past other really important elements in the show. For example, let's look at episodes 1 and 2, because really both episodes are mostly just setup. And that's fine, the first episodes are always going to be heavy with setting up the plot, but for 2 weeks, that meant we got very little done. Episode 1 is especially bad, because most of the important setup gets established in episode 2. Ironwood's plans for Amity, telling the people about Salem, RWBY lying to him, we meet the Aesops. Episode 1 doesn't really have anything important like that. There's a fight scene, but it's short, and probably the most lackluster encounter in the whole volume. Oh, but wait a minute! There is something important in episode 1. Penny came back. I nearly forgot since we rushed past it. Seriously, Penny's return felt like an afterthought. It's over so quickly and none of the characters seem to care. RWBY doesn't seem that blown away or anything.
Penny, I thought you...
The other RWBY girls don't seem to give a shit.
This is...
strangely wholesome. Sounds like Penny to me.
Hell, Juniper and Oscar don't even react at all. Penny's return was a huge deal, but we spent no time on it. This is why I say the volume is too slow and too fast. We spent a lot of time inching our way forward, but that time isn't being used to highlight or emphasize important character moments. We wasted episode 1 on Yang kicking a photo droid in a boring little fight to show off in the trailer, when instead we could have used this time to really give Penny's return the attention it deserved. Unfortunately, the whole volume is like this. Weiss sees Winter again, and the two don't even get to talk to each other afterwards until episode 5. Blake and Yang tell Robin about Ironwood's plans, and then it gets revealed in episode 9, but it doesn't get addressed until episode 11. The pace and the focus is out of sync with each other, and I think the unfocused plot is a big reason for that. The plot sort of takes a U-turn in the finale. We spent the first 9 episodes focusing on the political plot, and then suddenly the finale is about a Grim invasion and maiden powers? The two are barely connected, and the transition into our finale almost feels like the plot to a totally different season. A huge problem with this is the fact that we have no idea what the villains are ever trying to do. Ultimately, Watts does want a Grim invasion, and he uses Jacques' login credentials to make it happen. That's the whole reason he's helping Jacques win the election, but was that really necessary? Could Watts not just get his credentials from the start? Some say he and Tyrion wanted to cause chaos by making the people think less of Ironwood, but Jacques totally was gonna do that anyways. He literally wanted a seat on the council just to shit on Ironwood. The villains' vague motivations has been a problem with the writing of RWBY from the very beginning. I'm hoping moving forward we can get to focus on our villains more and understand their plans for future volumes better. It would lead to some character development for our antagonists and help give the volumes better focus plot-wise. The political half of the volume was a little stronger. A corrupt political mystery is at least intriguing, though the setup was a little confusing. Like, I thought Ironwood was also in the running for a seat on the council alongside Jacques and Robin, and how the council actually works is never explained either, but these are minor points and easy to forgive. I will say though, if RWBY wants to continue with a political plot, or keep bringing up the council as an important element, they should really clarify how the council system works, to avoid any future confusion. Now, I spent a lot of time focusing on the writing, but CRWBY got new directors this volume too. RWBY's directing has never been bad, per se. If anything, it's been a bit boring at times, but they've really taken a step in a positive direction this time around. It's most noticeable with talking head scenes. They play around with different camera angles a lot more, and even moving the camera around. It might seem like a minor thing, but it helps from keeping the talking scenes become boring. More impressively, they've gotten better at directing their action scenes. RWBY's suffered in the past by having the camera too active during a fight. Let's look at this fight from Volume 6 and count how many times the camera cuts to a different angle.
I wouldn't have to be doing this if you just behaved!
Changing angles this frequently can hinder the flow of the fight and make it hard to follow. This volume, they've played around a lot more with long one-takes. This shot against the Geist is a good example. It's all one take, and it makes this barrage of attacks easy to follow and makes it look a lot cooler at the same time. If I had to gripe about anything, and it's really more of a personal taste thing than anything else, are these like cut-in shots? This happens in almost every episode and I don't like it. It's not bad, it's just like, it ruins my immersion, but that just might be me. Regardless, I can honestly say the action scenes this volume have gotten a huge improvement. The choreography has improved, and we see the team playing around with interesting locations, weapon usage, semblance usage, and some fights are still a little too fast. The maiden fight at the end is a good example of that. But overall, most of the fights have been way more impressive, and, most importantly, fun. Even the fights I can find faults with, like Juniper vs. Neo, at the very least I can say it's fun to watch, which is a top priority for me. While we're on animation though, I think the parts that's improved the most is with the little things in the background. There's extra effort in things that's not front and center. For example, after the attack on Robin's political rally, in this shot we can see RWBY reach her hand out to try to comfort Penny. But then she realizes she still has some of Fiona's blood on her hand. That's a great little moment, and might be something a lot of people wouldn't even notice the first couple of times watching. Another little thing is Jean sitting here. I was confused because he looks rather stoic. Then in a following moment, we see him gag as the plane spins. I realize he's not being stoic, he's trying not to throw up. Remember, he's Vomit Boy. It's these little details that really elevate a shot, and I love them. If I had to gripe, certain talking scenes could use some work. Specifically, the character who isn't talking could have a little more going on. The speaker looks fine, but the listener always seems to just sit there. But this issue is nothing new with RWBY, or a lot of other animated shows either. Now, something I wanted to touch on was the comedy for this volume. It was a big talking point in the community, most notably how bad it was. Now, RWBY's comedy has never been stellar or anything, but this volume seemed to really struggle with its comedic scenes. Not all of their jokes flopped, hell, some of them were absolutely hilarious.
I like your outfit too.
But a good majority of them were a train wreck, and I think it's because of two factors. First, timing. A lot of jokes that flopped were terribly timed. The entire volume had this habit of sandwiching joke scenes with really serious scenes. This is prevalent throughout multiple episodes of the whole volume, and it's not good. The comedy scenes ruined the impact of the serious moment. I'm sitting here trying to watch Ironwood get under heavy fire from the council, but Nora's wacky antics are still on my mind. And then the serious scenes dampened the mood of the comedy. Now I'm sitting here watching RWBY flop around like a fish, but I'm still thinking about revealing Salem to the world. Comedy isn't bad, I actually encourage it, but there's a time and place for it. Second, the style of comedy, specifically the slapstick. RWBY is a show that involves death, abandonment, gods, reincarnation, alcohol abuse, and racism. Seeing Looney Tunes style slapstick feels out of place, doesn't it? This style of comedy doesn't work anymore with the style of the show. Having Nora bounce around and scream a lot isn't funny when we look at the serious issues the show is trying to address. If RT cuts out this style of comedy from RWBY, I think the show would improve a lot, and maybe even become actually funny moving forward. Now, I've spent a lot of time talking about the production side of the show, but now I really want to take a look at the heart and soul of any series, the characters. This volume was odd because I couldn't really say any of the characters went through a developmental arc. But there was something happening with our characters, personality-wise, so let's take a look at our cast for a better understanding, and of course, let's start with RWBY. RWBY doesn't really do much this volume, and it's a shame because it seems like they totally could have given her something to strive for, working on her silver eyes. During the finale, we see her try to concentrate enough to use her silver eyes, yet it doesn't work. A short while later, Salem brings up her mother, upsetting her immensely, and in her tearful turmoil, we see her eyes go on the fritz. Lastly, she runs in to help Winter and Penny against Cinder. Seeing this evil woman threatening her loved ones again, RWBY's eyes finally flashed for the first and last time in this volume. All of this feels like the final part to a volume-long arc of RWBY trying to work on her silver eye powers. Unfortunately, she doesn't address her eyes at all throughout the first 9 episodes. If they had given her some motivation towards getting better at it, then it would have been a perfect little arc for RWBY. Starts with Yang's line of,
"Wait until she sees what she could do with her eyes."
Then as RWBY works on her semblance, we also see her trying to improve her eye skills. It could have been an easy setup to this, but unfortunately they fell short with the execution of the concept. Making her eye powers during the finale feel like they just kinda came out of nowhere. That aside, most of RWBY's actions and dialogue in the volume is really great. She's working with Weiss and Penny all throughout. My only problem with her motivations is lying to Ironwood, because there is none. The team arrives in Atlas and they're all doom and gloom about seeing the General.
I guess we will be seeing the General. For better or worse.
But I thought seeing him was the whole point. You all kept going on and on about taking the relic to Atlas. Was meeting up with Ironwood not part of that plan? Why do you distrust him so much? Yeah, Leo lied, but you've met Ironwood before, and keeping Jin a secret doesn't get you anything. This would be a really interesting element for the show if the execution was better. I see no reason why RWBY would want to lie to Ironwood, especially since afterward, she's totally on board with finishing the tower.
The Amity project is completely stalled.
But we're so close. There has to be some way we can finish the tower.
On top of that, she seems relieved when Ironwood tells the people about Salem.
Of Salem.
He's doing it.
So what was the point of keeping the secret? You seem to be happy about everything he talked about doing, so why lie? If they had given a real reason for RWBY to be wary of trusting him, then it would have been fine. Like if he talked about getting revenge or seemed more paranoid and unstable early on. Because I really like the idea of RWBY finding herself in a similar position as Ozpin, keeping secrets. Team RWBY was furious with Oz, basically berated him into hiding away. Having RWBY be in his shoes would be a great way to have her start to forgive Ozpin, realizing the errors of their ways for how they treated him before. But the half-assed excuse for keeping the secrets ruins the idea from the beginning. And later, RWBY doesn't give her secret-keeping much thought after the first couple of episodes. Poor execution and missed opportunity really ruined what should have been a great plot point. Moving on, let's look at Weiss. Weiss is interesting because she's the only character actually trying to do something this volume. She's actively trying to solve the suspicious circumstances around Jacques winning the election. Multiple times we see her thinking about the different elements at play and trying to piece it all together. Too bad they ruined this by having her stupid mom solve the mystery for her. After the whole ass volume of Weiss being the only one trying to solve this mystery, Willow just waltzes in and hands her fucking answer. How dumb can you be? All of Weiss's setup for the volume has been for nothing. She didn't figure it out. Her asshole mom just spoiled the ending for her. It would have been so easy to have this scene and still give Weiss the chance to actually finish the arc she started. Weiss walks in, talks to her mom, blah blah blah, alcohol. Then Willow, realizing Weiss wants nothing to do with her, leaves with her line about Whitley. Weiss watches her go, contemplating her mother's words, then turns to the computer on the desk. She logs in and digs around, finding the security camera footage and pieces 2 and 2 together, realizing the tall, mustached man was a part of Pietro's team back in the day. She does a quick Google search of Pietro's team and finds a Wikipedia article about Watts, the disgraced Atlesian scientist who specialized in building the technology used in Amity Coliseum, the heating grid, and security in Mantle. Weiss would have her win, and it wouldn't have just been handed to her, ruining her entire focus for the volume. Blake and Yang didn't really get to do anything all volume, and that's fine. Blake and Yang have gone through a lot of character development, and have been main players in the show since Volume 3, Blake arguably since Volume 1. Having the two step out of the spotlight for a volume is fine. They just finished a big development arc last volume, and now we can let some of the other characters shine. This was something a lot of people complained about, but I really liked the fact that the two were always together throughout the volume. Whether you ship them or not, you can't deny that the two are at least very good friends. Best friends, even. And the two have been separated for 2 whole volumes, and then when they finally do meet up, they're busy running for their lives. The two haven't had a chance to just hang out and be friends with each other since Beacon. Of course they want to hang out and be happy. That's what I would want if my best friend was gone for a year. The downside is, it makes the two feel like they don't really give a shit about anything. Ruby's working on her semblance, Ren and Nora are at odds with Ironwood's plan, Weiss is trying to solve the political mystery, and Yang and Blake go dancing. Similarly, Jean is also more in the background, and once again, I'm fine with this. Jean also just finished a very long character arc, learning to cope with Pyrrha's death. I'm fine with having the dude play a supporting role for a while. Ren and Nora, however, really have taken charge this volume, Nora especially, and thank God for that. Our bubbly little redhead has been totally shafted with screen time and character development throughout the entire series. Unfortunately, the two don't really get the resolution to their screen time this volume. Ren and Nora are at odds, but we never see the plot point end. Hell, even in the last episode, Ren is still pissed off.
Now Salem has the lamp, Ironwood has the staff, and we have nothing!
I'm assuming the two are going to go through their own 3-volume long character arc, like how many of the other characters have already had, so I'm very excited to see this develop even further for Volume 8. However, it leaves Volume 7 feeling a little empty. I do really like this plot point for the two, though. Throughout the volume, Ren and Nora are constantly arguing with each other. Ren seems pissed off every time the crew stops training or suffers a loss, and Nora seems pissed off at Atlas's ambivalence towards Mantle's struggle. And seeing the two actually at odds with each other is a fascinating element for the show. Usually in shows, once two characters start dating, they never disagree with each other anymore. Seeing the two get to develop this way is both a breath of fresh air and super intriguing. Oscar's development was mostly tied with Ironwood. I wish he got to do a little more, but what he got was fine. At least they finally gave him some personality and on-screen development. It only took 4 years. Ironwood's shift in character at the end of the volume was great to see. Finally seeing the super paranoid general collapse under the fear and stress made for a tense finale where I found it hard to predict anymore. My only gripe is I wish it got hinted at a lot more during the volume. We only had one scene that hinted at Ironwood suffering from flashbacks or PTSD, so his shift at the end felt like it kinda came out of nowhere. Really just 1 or 2 more scenes to build it up would have been great. What Ironwood does go through the volume with Oscar, though, was fun to watch. Let's be real, Ironwood doesn't really give a shit about Oscar. In every scene, you can tell he would much rather be talking to Ozpin. Multiple times he brings up bringing Ozpin back to Oscar, and he's constantly talking about the things Oz used to say or do. I found this finale to be perfect. He really doesn't care if Oscar dies. He just wants to see Ozpin again. Oscar has lied to him, and he doesn't trust him anymore, and now I'm super excited to see how the two are going to be moving forward with Volume 8. Winter and Penny, similarly, I feel like should have gotten more screen time to develop. Winter is planning on being the next maiden, and Penny actually becomes it. I wish we had more scenes with the two to build it up more. Winter seems stuck into only interacting with Weiss. Hell, she didn't even bat an eye when her own brother was standing in front of her. Penny got some screen time with RWBY, which was really nice, but there's two oddities with her character throughout the volume. First, she got framed at Robin's rally, but then nothing happened. I really expected her being framed to be a much bigger plot point. Unfortunately, once the episode's over, everyone kind of forgets about it. Why spend so much time building this up just for it to be a footnote in the long run? And the other thing is this weird plot about, getting human emotions?
It gives me personal feelings.
But Penny has been expressing personal feelings since her introduction in Volume 1. You don't decide someone's your best friend without expressing personal feelings about them. If they wanted to do a plot point like this, then I would offer the suggestion of not giving her her memories back. Make her seem like she really is just a mindless robot. Then as RWBY tries to talk to her throughout the volume, she starts acting more and more like her old self, before finally admitting to her personal feelings at the finale, proving she is a real girl before she gets the maiden powers. Now, I'll tackle the Aesops because they have the same problem. Oh, and I guess I should talk about Crow here too. The Aesops' screen time was far too limited this volume. We spent all of the first 3 episodes building them up and establishing their characters, then they just fucking vanished. Spending much more screen time with the Aesops would have benefited the finale in a huge way. First, betraying Team RWBY. Fighting the girls would have meant more. We'd have grown attached to them, and seeing them turn on our heroes would have been a bigger emotional impact. Second, it would portray the idea of Team RWBY really were strong enough to beat them. One montage doesn't cut it when it comes to showing our characters grow, and while you can surmise RWBY got the victory because they used better teamwork tactics than the Aesops did, it would be better if we got to see them training and maybe have Team RWBY catch on to what the Aesops' weaknesses are. Oh, Vine gets tunnel vision, and it's easy to trick him with Blake's semblance. Oh, Elm loses a lot of her strategy if she can't root herself. Stuff like that. The only Aesops that got any screen time was Clover and Marrow. Clover makes sense. He's an integral part to Crow's character development throughout the volume, and with his death, will likely play a major role in Crow's character moving forward. But why the fuck is Marrow here? Marrow's dialogue is always just, "I'm a faunus, guys. We've been discriminated against." Like, why is this your only character trait? He's just regurgitating the annoying crap Blake used to talk about non-stop. We've heard all this before, and the fact that literally no one discriminates against him at all this volume undermines his point. It just looks like he's bringing it up all the time because he wants attention. Did we really need 3 whole scenes dedicated to Marrow if this was all he was going to talk about? Now, the villains this time around have all the same flaws as before. Like I said earlier, we never know what their plans are, and it means our plot has no focal point, and the villains never get to develop. While their screen time was very limited, at the very least what we got was entertaining. Not only was all the fights they were involved with spectacular, but also the writers have really gotten good at giving them better dialogue. An extra special shout out to Jessica Negri, who has completely knocked it out of the park.
No! We get what I need first, then we get what we want.
1000% improvement, good job. The biggest bummer about the villains is the fact that nothing that got set up in Volume 6 ever came to fruition. All of Volume 6, they kept hinting that Emerald and Mercury might split from Salem and do their own thing, but they never even appeared in this volume at all. To be fair, this volume already had a lot going on in it, so there really was no room to shove an Emerald and Mercury plot in there. It's sort of the sins of the father situation. Now I'll just have to wait for Volume 8 to see if this will eventually develop. Now let's see, I talked about RWBY and Juniper and the Aesops, villains. I feel like there was someone else I want to talk about. Who was it?
Yep. Still here, everyone.
Okay, Robin is the dumbest fucking part of this whole volume. Oh my god, why are you even here? Obviously, Robin only exists because they needed someone to run against Jacques in the election. Fine, cool. And she's Robin Hood, because she's taking from the rich, Atlas, and giving to the poor, Mantle. Alright, awesome, except she fucking doesn't. We see her steal all kinds of crap, but Mantle doesn't seem to be benefiting from it at all. We don't see her giving supplies to locals or anything. No one thanks her. No one seems to be looking out for her unless they're her happy huntresses. She talks about getting supplies for the giant-ass hole in the wall, yet when the invasion happens, the hole looks completely untouched. What have you been doing with all these shipments you've been stealing? The fact that there's no evidence that her theft has been for the benefit of anyone other than herself really lessens the impact of her theme of steal from the rich, give to the poor. She's not even, stealing from the actual rich people. She only bitches to Jacques after his crimes have been revealed at the end. The entire time before that, Robin was more than happy to just shit on Ironwood. Why only Ironwood? The dude who beat you in the election, and is probably racist, and is a slimy asshole who threatened the people of Mantle to vote for him, is sitting right next to you, but you would rather sit there and shoot spitballs at Ironwood. Okay, she's not likable. There's literally nothing about her character that I find worthwhile. Her nicknaming things sound so forced, it doesn't make her seem charming.
Oh, hello, Red.
Hey there, Firecracker.
Means the kingdoms can
I know
finally...
what the tower means, fisticuffs.
Her nasty attitude isn't cute.
Oh, and the pipsqueak is back.
The fact that she's an actual criminal is baffling from a story standpoint. Her stealing makes a little more sense after she lost the election, but the fact that she insists on obviously practicing and stopping Ironwood shipments to steal from them is fucking dumb. She's flaunting her legal actions and yet still insists on running for a seat on the council? Bitch, are you surprised you lost? Robin Hood could make sense for her character, but they utilize his elements in the worst way. The idea is, breaking the law is a good thing if the law is corrupt. But Ironwood isn't the corrupt one, yet he's the only one she's targeting. I think this would have worked if she wasn't the one running for the election. I would have chosen May Marigold to run instead. Her name alludes to Maid Marian from Robin Hood. She's a princess, she's a beacon of good things, and tries to be civil even when faced against the corrupt Prince John. She would make for a great fit for a candidate on the council. Have May try to get the seat while Robin continues to do her stealing. It would lead to an interesting dynamic for them. Robin, stop stealing Ironwood shipments. You're making me look bad. Why? It's not like you're the one stealing them, but people know we work together as happy huntresses. It's hurting my chances for winning this election. Unfortunately, Robin's toxic personality isn't the only bad thing about her. Robin is the catalyst for the absolute dumbest part of this whole volume. Throughout the whole of the finale, Robin is the reason we got the worst part of it. Okay, this fucking dumb bitch is so fucking full of herself that she starts a fight in a tiny airship?
Looks like he underestimated me. Again.
Underestimate you? When did Ironwood ever underestimate you? He didn't even give a shit about you until he started stealing government supplies from him, and then he didn't underestimate you. What fucking fantasy world are you living in? Also, dumbass, you aren't under arrest. Crow is the only one Clover needs to arrest, and the two of them are totally chill about the scenario. Fucking Crow didn't even bother standing up until after you started shooting at Clover. Hey man, Ironwood says you're under arrest. Aw shit, are you serious? That bastard! He'll never take me alive! Oh no, Robin, not you. Only Crow. Come on, dude, don't fight me on this. Yeah, maybe we should talk to James himself, get some clarification. I'm not going to jail! Oh, and of course, her fucking arrow hits the one exact spot to release Tyrion from his spot, which caused him to crash the plane, which caused Clover's death. Now, Robin wasn't the only dumb one in this moment. The other dumb one was the writer, who decided to have Crow and Tyrion team up. Fucking what?
Me and you have a score to settle.
Oh, I agree.
What score? What settling is there to do? Crow hasn't given you a second thought since Volume 4. I doubt he's that torn up about being mildly poisoned. And Crow wasn't the one who fucked you up, Tyrion. It was RWBY. If anything, Tyrion should have a grudge against her. Their teaming up was contrived and stupid and didn't need to happen at all. Clover still could have died without Crow arbitrarily teaming up with the psychopath murderer who has tried to kill him on multiple times and attempted to kidnap his niece. Rather than the dude he's been spending the entire fucking volume befriending. Just have it be a three-way fight. This volume we got to see Tyrion Semblance, which appears to nullify Aura. A lot of people say he's like the opposite of Jean, and we see him try to hit Clover with this, just like how he did with Fiona. Have Tyrion run up, take out Clover's aura, Crow sees this and hurls Harbinger at Tyrion. Both Tyrion and his weapon crashes out of their way and into the debris of the airship. But we see Tyrion is still conscious, however. Crow and Clover turn to each other, but stop. One is out of aura, the other has nothing to defend himself with. They realize they don't want to hurt each other, and this fight has gotten out of hand. The two have their dialogue about trusting Ironwood and doing what's right. Then, just like the show, Tyrion has taken Harbinger and impaled Clover with it, ultimately killing him. It would have had all the stakes of the original version, and the questionable element of did Crow's bad luck kill Clover, without ruining the character's motivations for no good reason. So yeah, long story short, it's all Robin's fault. Other than that moment in the finale, and some questionable comedic scenes, I loved everything about this volume. Which feels odd. I just spent like 4 hours talking about how none of the characters actually went through any sort of character arc. And while that's true, what we did get this volume was equally enjoyable, maybe even more so, character-driven conversations. This has been the first time in a long while that I was excited to see two characters sit down and talk to each other. The dialogue this volume has a massive improvement. Talking head scenes beforehand was the worst part of the show, since the characters never highlighted their personalities while talking to each other. Any of the dialogue could have been said by any of the characters because it never felt personal about the specific character talking. All of that has been changed for the better. When I think of my favorite moments from Volume 7, most of these moments were talking scenes. Penny and Ruby talking about friendship, Crow and Clover playing cards, Winter tells Weiss about the maiden. This volume is on par with some of the best scenes from RWBY. Ruby and Crow talking about Summer is as impactful as Penny telling Ruby she's a robot and Yang telling Blake about her mom. I love RWBY, not because of its flashy fight scenes, it's because I love these characters. And seeing them get such good moments with each other that highlights their unique personalities is the sort of thing I've been wanting to see since Volume 4. Now, moving forward, I'm hoping the writers can take these great character-driven scenes and start to integrate it into development, either plot-wise or character-wise, although both would be ideal. My suggestion would be to go back to having episode-long character arcs. Maybe it was easier for them back when RWBY was a more slice-of-life type show during their stay at Beacon, but back then they would go through several character arcs throughout the volume. The teaming up arc, the Jean arc, the White Fang arc. This way of writing means something gets set up and resolved consistently throughout the volume. RWBY tends to have the problem where the resolutions only happen in the last couple of episodes. That's because they only tend to write volume-long arcs, which aren't bad things. The problem is nothing gets resolved throughout most of the runtime. Most episodes from Volume 7 can be described as good but nothing happened. Having consistent character or plot resolutions throughout the whole volume would help make it feel like we're actually progressing. The way it is now, it feels like 80% of the volume is just setup. Let's make an example for how this could work. Episodes 1 through 3 would be a Team RWBY centered arc. We focus on the girls debating about Ironwood's plans and their own actions about lying to him. Resolving with episodes 3 Geist Fight. The girls decide to put this on the back burner to focus on improving to be as good as the Aesops. Episodes 4 through 6 would be a Ruby and Penny focused arc. They could go into their friendship and Penny's lack of other friends. It would resolve with the two at Robin's rally, where after being framed, Penny tells Ruby she doesn't think she can have other friends. This would come into play later when she ends up saving Winter from Cinder. Penny is deciding Winter is her friend. Episodes 7 through 9 would be about Weiss and Winter, resolving with the two facing their parents and realizing being mad at them won't make things better for them. Then 10 through 13 could focus on Oscar and Ironwood, resolving with Ironwood deciding to give up on them and shooting Oscar. It would be more work, but could also integrate B-plots throughout these episodes too. For example, episodes 3 and 4 would have a B-plot about Ren and Nora. Episodes 6 and 7 we could focus on Blake and Yang. Having staggered character-driven subplots and resolutions would mean each episode would be satisfying and move the audience forward at the same time. Volume 7 has a lot of great elements, and I'm hoping CRWBY can take everything they did well and execute it even better moving forward. Introducing new writers, directors, and animators will always have some growing pains, but if they learn from their mistakes from this volume, I'm positive Volume 8 will be fantastic. Maybe even the best of the series, and I'm hopeful that this theme of lying and keeping secrets gets to develop further. All of the lies or secrets only had an effect on Ironwood. It did help to set up his character shift at the end of the volume well, but there are a lot of elements that could continue to develop. Will the others be mad at RWBY for lying to Ironwood in the first place? Will there be a conflict about Blake and Yang not telling the others about Robin? If they follow down these paths, I think it would make for a great way to develop our heroes and be an opportunity to give them some inner conflict to resolve. So yes, I like Volume 7 a lot. Yes, it's flawed. The comedy, the pacing, and the plot are kind of out of whack, but I still enjoyed it despite those things. That should tell you how much I liked the volume. It made me super excited for Volume 8, and I haven't been this eager to see the next volume in years. I highly recommend it. If you want a score, I would say I would give it a happy penny out of 10. It's like I said at the beginning, my verdict It's really good. Alright, thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I explained myself in a nice, evenly way, and I didn't offend or hurt anybody's feelings. I wanted to really tell you what is good, what is bad, but not ever insult someone. So I hope I did that. In the comments, I would love to see your thoughts and opinions about the volume. Any of the characters, do you hate Robin as much as I do? What was your favorite episode throughout the volume? What are your hopes and expectations for Volume 8? Any and all thoughts, I want to hear them in the comments below. I do have a Patreon if you want to help support me. Any and all that you can do, it goes such a long way and is so greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.